Hi, good afternoon. I am going to take you through the lesson called Industrial Revolution. Europeans adjust to new ideas. The Industrial Revolution in Great Britain. Great Britain, also called the United Kingdom, is just one country in Europe, but we talk about the Industrial Revolution as a time in history. As we read, let's make sure that we are reading for a purpose because when we're done with today's lesson, there's a 10-question reading check. So we need to make sure we know the words Industrial Revolution, steam engine, spinning jenny, oh, there's the bell, and crop rotation. So we've got 10 questions that are comprehension questions over the lesson. And then once the reading check is complete, we're going to watch a brain pop video about Industrial Revolution, and we're going to type some video facts onto a Padlet. So our day looks like lesson, reading check, video, and Padlet. In 18th century Europe, the invention of new machines and the discovery of new sources of power brought changes that caused the Industrial Revolution. Here is our definition. An industrial revolution is a time in the history of a country when it undergoes a rapid change from an agricultural based economy to a factory based economy. Agriculture is another word for farms and farming, planting seeds in the ground. That's farming and agriculture. And then factory based economy is where machines are loaded up into large buildings that are called factories. So if you look carefully at this image, you can see it's a steam powered coal mine. And what it says is that this steam powered coal mine from the 1700s, what it says is coal, which is a natural resource dug out of the ground, supplied the energy for factories that sprang up in the English countryside. So let's talk about a steam engine. You can look very carefully at the graphic right here, but the Industrial Revolution came first to Great Britain, partly because of the country's large natural resources of iron and coal, both of which are natural resources that could be dug out of the ground. New ways of using these resources were invented in the 18th century, which means the 1700s. 17 to 1800 is the 18th century. Iron was used to make machine parts. Iron is metal, so the machine parts were made out of metal. Coal was burned to produce the energy that ran the new machines, such as the steam engine. The steam engine was invented in 1782 by James Watt. The way a steam engine works, which is what you see right here with the big wheel turning, is that burning coal made water turn into steam. And then the steam rises, steam pushed certain machine parts to make them move. So a steam engine would have included a coal burning furnace, a spot for water, and then the steam from the boiling water would have risen to make the machine parts move. Next vocab word is spinning jenny. So you can see this image right here. It says that most new machines in the Industrial Revolution were made for the textile industry. Textile means clothing, spinning thread into cloth, making cloth into clothes. Families used to weave cloth by hand in their homes. It was a tedious and slow process, but machines were able to speed that process up pretty significantly. So do you see this image down at the bottom? There's a machine that was invented called the spinning jenny. And it could spin thread 1,000 times faster than the spinning wheel. But look how large it is. That spinning jenny was too big to be placed in a person's cottage, so it had to be placed in a factory. So factories were usually built near streams or a source of fresh water because the water was the source of power. Each factory employed many different workers, so cities grew around the factories as more people began to work there. Let's talk about crop rotation. And you can see this like old-timey plow being pulled by horses. But this image right here where it talks about year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and it talks about the different fruits and vegetables planted, that's what crop rotation is. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, new ways of farming made it easier for agriculture to flourish. So plows were built so that farmers could plant seeds in nice, neat rows, and they could be less wasteful with the seeds that they were using. The system of crop rotation that's used by our farmers today was invented back in 1732. Rather than leaving some field empty, Charles Townshend found that soil would stay fertile. Fertile means it's easy for crops to grow if the farmer periodically, like every year, would change out the types of crop being planted. So they would alternate crops such as turnips for 1 year, beans the next year, clover for the next year. And by rotating out the crops that they grew, farmland could be more productive. As more cloth and food were produced, people needed better ways to move their goods from place to place. New methods of transportation became an important part of the Industrial Revolution because steamboats, do you see right here, and steamships, they increased the transportation time on water. And then railroad trains were pulled by steam locomotives, and the railroad trains would carry goods and passengers, people, on the land. All right, we need to talk about good things and bad things about the Industrial Revolution. So we've got lasting effects of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution happened in the 1700s in Great Britain, which is part of Europe. And on this column, we have negative things, things that were not good about the Industrial Revolution. And on this column, we have things that are good, positive effects about the Industrial Revolution. So we'll start by talking about the not so great things. Life in an industrial city was difficult. The swelling population was crowded into carelessly constructed buildings. Street garbage and unclean living areas fostered the spread of disease, so illnesses claimed many people's lives. Now think about the smokestacks from the coal being burned on those factories. Dust and fumes in the air, that's the pollution from the burning coal, made the air thick and unbreathable. And working conditions in factories were miserable. Wages, that's the amount of money that people were paid, were very low, and the hours that you would have to work were very long. Workers included men, women, and even young children. They would call that child labor, and that's illegal now, but back in the 1700s, families would make choices for their children, and the choice was go to work and receive a very low wage, but at least you can put money towards the family, or go to school, which back then you had to pay for school. So oftentimes children as low as age 8 or 10 would work in factories alongside their mothers and fathers. Now let's talk about some good things that happened as a result of the Industrial Revolution. People's lives gradually improved as they made money working in factories. And a strong middle class. Middle class means not too rich, not too poor, but right in the middle. Middle class of business people lessened the gap between rich people and poor people. And there were also more opportunities to advance and lead comfortable lives as people moved into the cities to try and earn money. So it says even poor people could afford meat more often and have better clothes as a result of their standard of living having gone up from working in a factory or living in a city. All right, so kind of identify what you can see in this image. It says, London, England, 1793. After a day of heavy factory work, orphans and young children came home to the streets of London's rapidly growing slums. So here's your conclusion. This is the last thing that we have to learn about. By the year 1800, Great Britain was called the workshop of the world due to the amount of factories that used their natural resources of iron and coal. So the events of the Industrial Revolution had forever changed the way that people worked, the way they lived, and the way that they traveled. And if you identify what you can see on this map right here, you can see where there's a coal mining region in gray and where ironworks are. And then the different trades that people did, like cotton to make cloth for the textile industry and wool to make cloth for the textile industry, as well as pottery and shipbuilding. Let's talk about our job now that you're done with the lesson itself. Exit. You could click on Industrial Revolution Reading Check, and it will take you to this document right here. It's not a document, it's a Google form. But the Google form is 10 questions, so it's 10 points each. And I want you to notice that they go in the same order as the lesson that we just learned, and they use the same words as what was in the lesson right here. So the reading check goes with all of these slides that we just went through. Once you're done with the reading check, you can press submit, and then you can view score to see what you got. Again, 10 questions, 10 points each. And the last task that you have to do is a BrainPop video and a Padlet response. So we're going to watch Tim and Moby say kind of the same thing that Mrs. Smith just said, the lesson about the Industrial Revolution, but you get to hear it from Tim and Moby instead of hearing it from Mrs. Smith. Go to ClassLink, click on GISD BrainPop, and just wait, because it's going to auto-populate and it'll automatically log you in. Then in the search bar, type Industrial Revolution and watch the video that's 3 minutes and 41 seconds. As the video plays, I want you to have something to write with and something to write on, because as the video plays, write down at least 3 facts that you see or you hear on the Industrial Revolution BrainPop. The reason that you want to have those written down is because your very last task of the day is to open up the Padlet. If you're a remote learner, you click on this one. If you're an in-person student, you click on this one. They both look the same. It's just that half of my students are remote students and half of my students are in-person. So I wanted to make sure that we weren't overwhelming one single Padlet with everyone's responses. When you open up this Padlet, the directions are pretty straightforward. It says, click the plus in the bottom right corner, post 3 facts from the BrainPop video, and reply to at least one other student's comment. So here's the plus button right here, and you can click on it. And you see how it says teacher example. Where it says title, that's where you want to write your first and last name. In order to get credit, I need to know your first and last name. So where it says title, type out your first and last name. And then where it says write something, you're going to say 3 facts from the BrainPop are, and then you type out 1, 2, 3, 3 facts. And then you find at least one other student and see how you can put a comment, add a comment on at least one other student's work. I hope that that explains everything about the Industrial Revolution lesson. Again, learn the lesson, do the reading check, watch the BrainPop video, and do the response on Padlet, and that is our assignment for the day. Let your teacher know if you have any questions. I hope you have a great day. Bye.